PowerPoint while are you guys cool with that?
Yeah.
I got work to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
So one of you guys should attend a Zoom meeting. I think we're
Yeah.
getting live now.
It's not a secret-based PowerPoint. 'Cause that's what I'm used to.
No, I wish.
Oh.
That's work, sure.
Yeah, I'll share my screen so you guys can help me out with the graphics.
I can't do much better than clipboard.
We are live. I think I need to go to wherever I can see comments. So yeah, there we go. Okay, we're live. Welcome to Sunday Fun Day. I guess we're here with Chris and Phil and Brett has beer. And we're talking about yay for beer. Not really. I don't like beer.
Beer's great.
I'm the weird guy.
I'm not a beer guy. No, I'm the weird guy too. I'm not a beer guy. So it's two beer guys against two not beer guys.
You know what? We're gonna have to have a beer down right now. Then me and Phil against you two guys.
I just don't understand, like, especially craft beer guys. I don't get it. Like, I can't sit around and talk about the intricacies of an IPA. I can't do it. I don't understand.
They're all very different, George. You're talking
Are they?
about your ass right now. Yep.
Yeah, I totally am. I've had like 3 of them. There was like a chocolate milk stout. That was gross. I don't know. I can't do it.
Doesn't sound good.
Do you drink it warm, like craft beer? Because I know
What?
a lot of my friends who drink craft beer drink it warm. Like that's even worse.
That's a cask ale thing.
I guess.
So I come from a very German family, and my grandpa used to drink Olympia beer. I don't know if you guys remember Olympia beer. It might be kind of a Pacific Northwest thing, but and hams. And he would have cases of it just sitting in a pantry and just crack them, like not cold or anything like that.
That's gross.
It was gross, but that's how I started liking beer. Is I would go sneak them. 7 years old, 8 years old, something like that.
My dad used to be a huge fan of Schlitz.
Yeah,
Schlitz malt liquor.
yeah.
We even had a Schlitz sign in our window when I was a kid because we were totally uptown. We were a very well respected family and didn't live in the sticks with a Schlitz light up sign in our front window.
It's not podunk if you have a sign of it in your house.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? Like, especially neon. You're definitely not. I mean, it's not the sticks. It's like high class.
it wasn't not white trash at all. That's what you're saying.
No,
'Cause-
no. If there's neon involved, it's
All right.
it's the real deal. You guys
I
are like
always
moving on up.
assumed we were just white trash.
Nope.
Oh well.
Solve that for you.
I'm so overwhelmed right now with
With New Yorkingness
and the
like,
delay of me on the camera and people talking to us.
Oh, no.
Come on.
Oh, really? You're like a deer in the headlights?
Yes.
So every time we say something, Phil's just going to pretend he didn't hear us and be like, "What? I don't know. There's a delay. I don't know what you're talking about right now."
Yeah, I might. Sorry, there was a delay. Did I miss something?
We just found a cask,
It's going to be super fun.
if that's something.
So today, something that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk to you guys specifically,
Hams.
was what?
Somebody commented about of all the topics of Sunday Fun Day, I never thought we'd be talking about hams beer.
Oh,
That's
well,
Mr. Brian Yablonsky.
you never know what you're going to get.
Yablunaski.
Something that I wanted to talk about is how people approach puzzles, because we're getting a lot of new people and new people who aren't experienced in puzzles at all, and the 3 people, well, I guess the 4 people who are talking tonight are fairly experienced with puzzles, enough so that if someone were to put a new puzzle in front of your face, you'd at least not be lost. You'd know how to start it and how to, I guess you get your foot in the door. So what I was curious about was how each of you approaches puzzles. And since Chris and Phil, you guys are kind of a team in regards to puzzles, you work on puzzles together, how each of you sort of complement each other when you're working on a puzzle. So Phil, like if I were to put a brand new puzzle in front of you, how would you approach it? What's the first thing you would do? What's the first thing you would look for?
I'd read the whole thing, and then
I mean, like it sounds like a stupid statement, right? But it's like,
I don't think it sounds stupid. I see so many people who are like, "Oh, I've never looked at any of the other cities and stuff." And I think that's absurd with a puzzle. Like
not even that. Like people who haven't even read the front of the book or the back of the book, like it's a whole book.
Yeah, it is a whole book. Hard to say what's important, but we're not doing that today. Yeah, I'd read the whole thing. I look for patterns. I look for, because the puzzle person's generally trying to hide information from you. That's the whole concept of a puzzle. I look for patterns. I look for idiosyncrasies, things that stand out. Just things that I feel I can use to better understand what they might be doing.
Right. Because like if somebody's going to give you hidden information inside of a long block of text, there's going to be some sort of pattern to that. Whether it's super obvious or not, there's going to be some sort of pattern. And I'm guessing you're straight up, after you consume everything, just looking for that pattern to see if you can figure out how to break it.
As the first step, yeah. Obviously, that can be a fallacy because some things don't have patterns. I think that is something important about The Secret that we go back and forth on. I look for a lot of patterns. I think Chris looks for a lot of patterns. John is very good at telling us this pattern may not exist and bringing us back to earth when we get all excited. And I think that's important. Yeah, because like as a first step, I'll look for patterns, but it doesn't necessarily, like Great U.S. Treasure Hunt. You can look for patterns all day, and I found a bunch, and I felt good about them, but a lot of times the pattern wasn't, it wasn't something you could actually deduce from just being like, oh, that's weird. He used a lot of E words.
Yeah.
That's what I think they were trying to get you to do. And I think ultimately you would have found an answer that way, but it could be a fallacy to actually be looking for that kind of thing.
Or like the commas. The commas on the U.S. Treasure Hunt was weird to me. What was it like? One of the solutions was every comma, it was like the letter of for that or something
Letter
like
after
that.
commas.
After. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
nuts.
I think that was told by the story, but
I didn't read that
people were
story.
a little hard on the Great U.S. because they didn't do the postmortems. They should have, just like people being like, wasn't Boston already solved? But we still have people saying the Boston Public Library is part of the solution, so clearly they have some work to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Admittedly so.
I mean, a lot of like the Great U.S. Treasure Hunt were people who were unfamiliar with puzzles in general.
I think that was a problem. Yeah, that was a lot of why people didn't like it.
And they made it more complex. The people who were trying to solve it, at least in my eyes, from what little I saw, I wasn't super involved in the community, but they were making it super complex. At least from what I saw.
Puzzle makers or the people?
No, the people trying to solve it. They were going way out into left field when, in reality, you list these songs and it's the first letter from either the band or the song or whatever.
Yeah, they wanted it to be Forrest Fenn. They wanted it to be more of a scavenger hunt, like put this together. Oh, the medallions in this park because of the surrounding objects. They didn't like the hidden message concept from what I saw in the forums.
Yeah. All right, so let's go down the list. Chris, if I were to put a new puzzle in front of you, what's the first thing you would do?
I'm definitely, I gotta reiterate the read it all, because I'm definitely going to try to take in and consume like as much of the information that's given to us, because we know it's a puzzle. We know they're hiding information, but we also know they want us to find it, right? So they're doing something in there that's supposed to lead us on this path to uncover whatever it is that we're looking for. So I think that's part of it where the patterns come in, is like one great way to let us know how to sort of get your hooks into a puzzle is to start to identify patterns, and whether that's, using the same word, like repetition is one kind of pattern that people use, or things that don't seem to fit properly is another one. So those are the things that I'm sort of scanning for first. Like there's a time frame where I'm like getting comfortable with the information because this is new. Like, you know, when we started the Silver Scratch, it was just like you're just inundated with information. We had all this stuff in front of us and no idea what to do with it. So you just have to keep pouring over it until things start to come to light, I guess. That's kind of what I would do to start.
Yeah, it's important to understand the subject matter, like, you know, not have to reference it all the time. I think that's when you start to kind of make connections and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, the more familiar you are with it. Well, also, and I guess the more you read it, the more you become familiar with the text itself, the easier it is to find those little phrases or words that just don't make sense. Like you start to familiarize yourself with the author and how the author writes, and you start to see things like this. He probably wouldn't have used this here, or this is misspelled and he wouldn't have misspelled a word, kind of thing. So, and I can see that how that would help with the pattern finding, I guess, or at least finding, you know, the hidden information.
Chris loves misspellings.
Well, Chris,
I'm secretly an editor. I just want people to spell shit properly.
I don't think other than the secret and I guess the four of us have never worked closely together on the secret, close enough for each of us to figure out how the other does puzzles. But from the outside looking in, I always saw Phil as like an absorb everything and then just go sort of full force at this puzzle, trying to figure out from every different angle how patterns or errors or whatever would lead you to get the information from the text. And I always saw Chris as sort of a hunter-gatherer, like hunting for spelling errors, hunting for patterns, hunting for off words or whatever, and then cataloging them and looking for the pattern within the catalog. Am I just flat out wrong on both of you guys?
I think both of those described Chris.
Okay. Well, see, like I'm different, and I'm different. Like the way I approach puzzles is different from all of you guys because I look for flaws. Like the first thing, I'm not good at patterns. I'm not good at like online cipher tools are my best friend because I'm horrible at them with pen and paper. I'm horrible at looking for patterns. I can't spell, so I'm horrible with misspelling. So what I do is I look for flaws, and I feel like if I can find a flaw that can be exploited, I go for that, which is useful in online stuff, but not so useful, you know, with a 40-year-old treasure hunt book.
I think that's true. I think this is something we talk about a lot. This was a business venture. So when Chris brings up spelling errors, flaws, inaccuracies, even like I think we talked about a long time ago how the fair people, when they're presented, sometimes they're spelled differently. My personal take on that is often that this was a rushed book. They had to get it out, and it's possible that different sections were even done by different people at different times with different source material. So I'm not totally convinced that a lot of the spelling errors and the idiosyncrasies that change over the course of the book are necessarily indicative of something we should be looking for.
Right.
Because if someone had one book that had Hutchin with the umlaut and someone else had one with a line or whatever, you know, that's just what they had at the moment. We don't know that Byron wrote the whole thing. We don't know if some of it might have been written 10 years ago, you know, who knows what he harvested when.
Yeah. So, okay.
So this one specifically, the nature of it, in my opinion, is such that, like, obviously, yes, we'll work on it. We'll think about it. But it's not the same as the Great US where it was written to be a puzzle, or like Silver Scratch, where we knew that as J.M. was piecing this together, he was hiding things as he went. This one does feel a little bit more of they had a puzzle. Maybe he put some tips here and there, but it doesn't feel as grandiose.
But does that, because we don't know the answer to that question specifically, we don't know who wrote what, we don't know when each section was written, does that force you to solve the puzzle both ways. I mean, that
Yes.
seems like it would make it infinitely more complex.
It makes it infinitely more complex, but I feel like on this one, and I feel like that's why this is a terrible puzzle to be even talking about with approach, is just that a lot of the approach to this one is how can we hack it at this point. It's been 40 years. A lot of the clues aren't there anymore. This is why I think I emphasized knowing all the puzzles, because on this one, maybe 40 years ago, we could go to the location, all the clues would be there, we could solve it. Now a lot of the clues might not be there, so we have to infer more what kind of clue it might have been at this location, that location, and to do that, you have to know all the puzzles. That's where it's not as much the purist, let's solve this puzzle. Now we're whatever we can find.
Yeah, let's figure out a way to break into it or break it apart. I mean, it's arguable that all of the major stuff that's been found has been found by sort of brute forcing Byron's errors, or maybe
I would say
something exploitable.
Planter,
it's been something exploitable.
Right.
The planter was an error for sure. He didn't have the internet. He didn't think people were going to stumble on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chicago, honestly, I think is the most well put together so far puzzle, as far as puzzle goes, that you could still solve now. But I think that's also a problem, is that people are using this as the benchmark.
And you think it was just sort of...
I think it's solved for a reason.
Well, I mean, do you think it was maybe... So do you think Byron sort of had his act together when he was making Chicago and finally made a good puzzle? Is that what you're saying? Like, Chicago's set apart because it's created in a good way?
No, I think they're just more exploitable clues. They all work together well, but I think now people are doing the scavenger hunt thing, looking for words, and they might, it might not be like that.
Yeah,
right.
But I think Chicago, as far as like a simple puzzle that once you're in Chicago, you'll find this followed by that, followed by this, all around a single point. Chicago works like that, I would say.
But then Cleveland and Boston don't. Like, Cleveland and Boston work completely different.
Yeah, there's Chicago didn't have really any of the wordplay that we're talking. Boston is
all
a very good puzzle as far as wordplay.
Chicago had a different kind of wordplay. It was solve for M, solve for B, solve for L, solve for R. Like, that's a wordplay. It's just a different kind of wordplay than some of the other ones that we've seen.
Well, I mean, looking at Boston and Chicago, from my point of view, just taking the paintings completely away, the verses kind of work the same, except like in the last half of Boston. The first half of Boston's kind of, what the fuck does all of that mean? But in the last half, it seems kind of cut and dry to me. But it's the images where everything's just completely different.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say, is it's shocking how similar Cleveland and Chicago were. They both have a map of the state outline in the image. They both have a building. Mm-hmm. The verses both, like, they're so similar that I can see why people really want all the other ones to work that way. Mm-hmm. But I think if we bring this full circle back to process, yes, that would be the first thing I do, is look at the two that were solved at the time when I started this. And, write everything down, what techniques he used, all that stuff. But as you start working on the other puzzles, you really do see they definitely do not work like Chicago and Cleveland.
I think we did remember when we did a podcast about like the patterns between stuff, and I remember talking to you two guys about it in particular, and you're both like, not a horrible idea, but we're pretty sure that that it's, that none of these things are really aren't similar enough so that a framework like that would help you. You know what I mean?
Framework's tough.
That bummed me out.
There can still be a framework of types of clues. Just how he gets to those clues is the main thing.
Yeah, it's like the information. the information he's giving you is the same: buildings, street names, people, but how he's giving it to you, painting, verse, wordplay, whatever, like that's what changes, and that is what makes these hard.
Yeah, and it's you guys are totally right. Like process for. And by the way, to clarify, there were some comments about what were we talking about earlier? We were actually when we first started this broadcast, we were talking about the U.S. or the Great U.S. Treasure Hunt. We weren't talking about the secret. So I think there was a little confusion there about that. But now we're definitely talking about the secret. But it's funny because back in the past, when I got a puzzle, when I first saw it, my first thing to do I would call John Hardapee and go, "Hey dude, help me with this." And then he introduced me to you guys. And then so now I've been in like a little group trying to do, hold my own with you guys as much as I could. But I think you guys kind of sell yourself short because you're the first people I've seen that create those spreadsheets. I've never seen anybody, and you guys might think that's just something you do. Why wouldn't you create a spreadsheet to keep yourself organized? I never did. I just sit and stare at it. I also don't read the whole thing, by the way. So that there's another problem of mine. But point being, you guys have these, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it or how interesting you think it is, but I think it's cool. You guys create these shareable Google Sheets, and you break down the puzzles, and you put different alternative solutions in different buckets, and then each of you has your own tab in there where you're working like independently on something and then bringing it back to the mix. And I've seen you guys just nail down some puzzles in hours that nobody else has really been able to solve. Like I think that's cool. I've never really collaborated with anybody in the past all that much, but certainly not like that.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think so what Brett's talking about more so is this cocktail bar put out a puzzle once every week or month. It was, I don't know.
It was every couple of weeks.
Was it every?
It was like every second Saturday or something.
Yeah, every weekend or two.
And they were traditional puzzles. They were like, here's page of things, figure out what we're saying.
They were hard. They were hard. For a normal dude like me, the fact you guys were making progress on those, like, it was impressive.
Well, there was a lot at stake.
Cocktail napkins or dinner.
They had a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle they never gave out.
Oh, I don't know what that is, but it sounds expensive and awesome.
Yeah. So when he says, when Brett says each puzzle, he doesn't mean like New York, San Fran, whatever for the secret. For the secret, our spreadsheets are a lot more global. They'll be like words we've found repeated across verses. There'll be themes across verses. This is something me and Chris think about a lot ever since we started working, is there do seem to be a lot of repeats in this puzzle. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if that's part of the puzzle. I don't know if it's just Byron's interests, but there's things that show up multiple times. And that's one of those like sheets that we'll put together of just like, because it's just, as you've seen, Brett, when we do this, like you really see patterns, because like you'll lay it out vertically, lay it out horizontally. Mm-hmm. And it's the best way to just at a glance be like, oh, here's a shit ton of information.
Yep.
Is there anything here? And sometimes there is.
And I watch you guys, and I know I've helped a tiny little bit on, or I got in kind of late in the game. You guys are already cranking through stuff, and I'll just go in and watch and try to help and stuff like that. I don't really do anything, but your collaboration is cool because you guys approach things different, or you think about things in a different way. And there's like four of you guys, I think, in this little puzzle solving group, and each of you brings this something to the table that helps eventually make the meal it gets served eventually at the table, right? Which is, I think, is cool, and I think that's a cool approach for people. Look for people to collaborate with that think a little bit differently from you,
or that disagree with you. Like, there's nothing worse than a puzzle team that's just yes men. There's nothing worse than that.
We all think we're all right all the time. You know, it just doesn't help get anything solved, right? And especially something like this that's so incredibly complex. And by the way, you know, I've said this before, if people are coming in and like, you're coming in because you watched Expedition Unknown, and you're used to treasure hunts and scavenger hunts and ancient mysteries and stuff like that, and you haven't really been exposed to like kind of traditional puzzles, this is a friggin' hard one. Can you guys imagine this being your first puzzle? Like, I would be totally turned off by this thing. I would probably walk away and not do it. But what I'm saying is that people should practice too. So get a team together and also practice on other stuff and try to learn different puzzle solving methods
Or
and
to see other puzzles.
because then you'll see just how ridiculous this thing is. You know what I mean?
This
Like,
one
once you
does,
solve one.
On first glance, this one does seem very accessible. I think that is a fallacy with it, because it's just pictures. Oh, I got to find things in the pictures, and then first makes sense.
And you see people, like, everybody falls into that trap when they first come in. It's always like the first thing they do is play highlights. Well, the first thing they do is generally say, it's in my hometown. Then they play Highlights magazine, trying to find little, things. And then, like, they just go sort of off the rails, or they give up because they don't understand. And I think that's like a good point, is if you don't understand how puzzles work, it's not going to work exactly like you first think it is. And then you're going to get discouraged very, very quickly unless you build some sort of framework. Unless you understand basics, at least.
This is not like a Josh Gates linear one step. Once you figure this thing out, then this happens, or like, okay, maybe it is, and part of it is, but
we don't know that. But
what I'm saying is that I'm not quite sure what it is, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
like
a good point. Yeah.
Like but once you see how different puzzles are constructed, and get a little exposure to them, it certainly makes it broadens your perspective. That's all I'm saying. Right. So if you're coming in straight from a TV show going, I like scavenger hunts or treasure hunts, and looking at this, don't get discouraged that you haven't like solved it yet, because it is, obviously it's extremely difficult, and it's 4 decades plus old, and there are some smart minds working on it. And
I want to backpedal just a little bit there. Something you brought up was the team of yes men.
Yeah.
And I actually think there could be more yes men in this puzzle, because a lot of this discussion I see is someone will bring like an idea to the table for, who knows, hymn of hard word. That's a good one that people are always just coming up with ideas for. And that's fine. But people will counter hymn of hard word with a different hymn of hard word. And I don't think that's a discussion. I think a lot of times it's better for Chris to come into the group, be like, I think this is that. And then I will be like, okay, yeah, maybe it is. So then we'll just go into it, and I'll just research. I do this for a lot of stuff I see online. I'll look into everyone's stuff, because who knows what else you're going to find. And I think it's important to a lot of times assume they're right and go into it. Be like, oh yeah, it did write this 3-volume whatever, and that does come up readily. That's pretty cool. Oh, and he is right there, and this clue is right there. Like, it, sometimes this stuff works instead of being like, oh no, the answer is definitely this, because this puzzle isn't about solving the individual lines. It's about solving all the lines together.
Right.
That's,
I think,
my single biggest pet peeve about a lot of the groups is that people counter, well, it's not that because it's this, and they think they're right, and the person posting obviously thinks they're right, and then there's no, like Phil was saying, like you don't play it out, you don't see, and you're never going to change your mind or get your mind changed if we're just like disagreeing on some principle and not by actually like proving wrong. You know, Phil
because you can
will
research.
also
Yeah,
try to prove me wrong, which is good, and that's the like challenge part of it. But like once in a while, he tries to prove me wrong, and then like sees something that I'm seeing, and like sort of, you know,
like read
gets on
Chris's
board.
latest blog post on I don't remember, the Love one, about San Francisco. That's a great example of him sending me a document the night before he's going to post it, being like, hey, can you just edit this for content? And I'm going through it like, this is stupid, this is dumb, this should go. And then I'm like, wait a sec, hey man, yo, chast is in the litany. And like, I mean, that'll make more sense if you read it. I'm not going to go into it now. But that's a perfect example of me coming around to a Chris-ism that he's honestly had probably told us about a dozen times over the last 3 months and just never really resonated.
But yeah, there's a difference between, sorry, I think George is saying yes man as in like the pure yes man.
Sure,
you're talking about having an open mind, and that's a totally different thing.
I think assumptions. The assumptions are important to me. It's not just like being like, oh yeah, it could be that, but I still think it's this, because I can keep my theory and still research your theory. Like, I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if you're right, but they can both be maybe right.
But there's like there's a fine line to this, because if you open up those doors fully, the entire puzzle just goes crazy. Especially for like my biggest issue is newer people, because people come into the groups constantly. We had like 20 new people today, and whatever the first thing they see in these groups is what they're going to assume. Like it's their first impression of the hunt, so they're going to take that as fact. So you've got weird off the rails discussions about things that don't make sense or that can't plausibly be correct without any sincere pushback. That can cause confusion for new people, and like I said, just make the entire puzzle go haywire. You see what I'm saying? Over time.
For sure.
I mean,
that's a good point. I guess, there's fine lines to everything, but a lot of things fall apart pretty quick. Like if someone brings out this hymn of hard word, they don't even have like a location with that hymn of hard word, and you're just kind of like, okay, so what do I do with this? Like, yes, that could be hymn of hard word based on pure definitions, but now what?
I actually got in an argument about hymn of hard words because I said something like, I don't understand why everybody assumes it's Dickens when we really don't have a whole lot of evidence that it's hard and fast going to be Dickens. You know, I think hymn of hard words, okay, cool, that's Dickens, but Dickens is going to depend on the clue before it. It's going to depend on the clue after it. Like, it only makes sense in a context, and you just can't assume that it's automatically Dickens.
The only difference with that one, and this happens with a couple like Gershwin because of the Japanese clue and the books around the time of The Secret that Byron was involved in, Gershwin suddenly becomes a lot better. Dickens has a lot of that going on for him in that even more so than Hamilton being an Indies native, like we have little Haiti here. Like New York City is all Indies natives, especially like Brooklyn. Hamilton's only a prominent answer. With Dickens, we're actually looking into clues Byron's had in the past, how he's worked clues, and a lot of things just line up for Dickens, like hard word being a writing. He has a writing called hard, like it's a little less than just like a stab in the dark for Dickens, in my opinion. There's a lot that goes into it. But I agree. We don't even know that it's a person. We don't even know it's a specific person, hymn of hard word. That's one thing I think doesn't get enough attention.
Good point.
Yeah.
It could just be, I found 3 buildings once. They're identical facades. The middle one is Harding. and their apartment buildings. So I was kind of like, well, natives would speak of harding among three, which would be three vols. Stuff like that, you know. I don't love that answer, but in the right place, that could be the answer.
Yeah, that leads me to one thought that I had, where like something that just sort of irritates me when people specifically talk about like Dickens. We're just assuming this is Dickens, but how does that play into what the verse is trying to tell you, right? It doesn't matter if it's Dickens. So we got a sign nearby speaks of Indies native. Now that may or may not refer to Dickens, whatever. But how does Dickens apply to that? And why does the natives, like instead of this sign, refer to this? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, let me present you with a hypothetical based on past puzzles. So in Chicago, we have to Congress, R is known. Byron tied those together. A lot of people think it's Congress Ave with Roosevelt University on it. That's possible. That's a good answer. But I also noticed that the building across the street from Roosevelt Ave is Congress Hotel and has a giant Congress Hotel on top that you can see from the Bowman. If we're talking about picking words off of buildings, which he did multiple times in the Chicago puzzle, I personally am inclined to lean on to Congress Hotel, Roosevelt University across the street is known. So now if we move into the New York puzzle, and we have, although the sign nearby speaks of Indies native, this could be a sign that speaks of Indies native. I personally think it's not just gonna be a name, because that's not a sign that speaks of anything. That's just a name. So let's say there's a building with a name, with like so-and-so emigrated from, I don't know, Southeast Indies, whatever. What if, so we have this building with a sign, let's say, or let's even say it could just be a name. It could be the Alexander Hotel. But the natives still speak of, I think this lines up a lot like that Chicago clue, in that we have two lines that seem to be related. One of them could be Alexander Hotel, any sign that says something. Across the street, you could just have Charles like every apartment building in Brooklyn is named. They all have names on them. So we could just be looking for a Charles. Like, this is like simple stuff he's done before. He put a whole quote from Pierre in there just to give you Herman. I don't see anything wrong with, like, I don't think Dickens needs to be related to New York. I don't think anything needs to be related to the city we're in, personally.
Absolutely.
Mike Stewart disagrees with you. He says it's not a random street sign. If it is, I quit. Well, I mean, in Chicago, it kind of was. No matter whether, like,
would the natives not speak of the street they live on? Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
and the puzzle is what the puzzle is.
Yeah.
It's not what you want it to be. It's not what you want to make it to be. It's what Byron did. And what he did might suck. And it might be stupid. And we might groan. And we might hate it. But that's what's going to be right. And that is a lesson I learned from
Boston
Fandango.
Pops.
Boston
Pops.
But he's named roads in almost every puzzle, whether through the image or through the verse. We have a witch for Salem Street. We've got a giant lion for King Street. We've got Congress Ave. We've got the road that curves. We've got behind the bending branches. Like, it's almost, I think, maybe every puzzle you can find a road in. So it would make sense that we have a road in New York. You just have to identify it.
I still go with Shore Avenue.
Shore Ave.
Is it Surf Avenue?
That's the thing. You got them all. You got Shore Parkway, you got Surf Ave, you got Neptune Ave, you got Mermaid Ave, you got Ocean Ave, Ocean Parkway. I mean, the problem with using the wave as your road is it pretty much opens the entire borough.
Everything.
Yeah.
Anything named after water.
But only part of that is Russian, right? Only part of the borough is Russian. This is what Brighton Beach. Brighton
Does
Beach
it have to be Russian though?
And Brighton
it doesn't have to be. No.
Brighton was becoming Russian in 78 through 82, so it's very hard to even know if Byron knew this.
Oh,
all right, I got you.
I mean, I love Coney Island. I think it's a great answer. But if that's the case, you're looking at Surf Ave and not Shore Parkway.
I get confused. I've never been there. I want to go so bad. I can't wait for the New York meetup because I want to go to Coney Island.
I hope a lot
I
of
wanna
people
get
see when they come to this New York meetup just how far stuff is away from each other. Like, I have a friend that lives 2 miles away, and I never see them because this is New York City, and like, this puzzle doesn't start in Coney and end in Prospect Park. Like, that's just not a thing we do here.
Yeah. Oh, you mean it's not like five stops of the subway? Like just hop on the subway and take 5 stops or whatever?
We don't. No.
You don't do that? Okay. Never mind.
Coney Island is very far.
You have to fly there.
Yeah.
I've taken the subway there. I'll do it. I just think it's kind of this isn't.
I'm gonna force you
this
to do
isn't-
it. If I come,
No,
when I come to
Alan.
New York, I'm gonna force you to go to Coney Island with me.
I've
You're
taken
gonna-
the subway out there.
I will
a hike.
take that line, and I'm going to get off at the nub and then start looking around.
Coney Island. Yeah, Coney Island's when your friend comes to town and wants to go to Coney. You've grown and you do it. But like, and I'm not saying this is like good or bad for Coney itself. I'm just saying a lot of these theories are bouncing all over. They're saying, oh, he's referencing this neighborhood 2 neighborhoods away from the neighborhood I think it's in because it's close. I'm just like,
on a,
no, I'm
on
not
a map.
nearby.
It's a map. Yeah.
tossing Greenpoint out there and burying it in Bed-Stuy. I don't know. This might just be me, but I'm not a lazy guy. I biked to Astoria yesterday, and I think some of these things are just very far apart.
Do you think New York's going to be like going to have to be a sort of contained puzzle like Cleveland was instead of a? I mean, I know it's not going to be some like massive, long traveling puzzle, but do you think it's going to be sort of self-contained in a really super small area?
It's hard to say. I
I
think
mean, it doesn't really give you any direction, right? It doesn't really tell you to
Yeah.
do anything.
the only city that's been solved is Chicago, and I'd say there's really only 3 cities in this puzzle: San Fran, Chicago, and New York. The other ones are like, when I go there, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a neighborhood of New York. This is like one neighborhood I would go to on a Saturday as opposed to like a city. Referencing like Cleveland, it's got like a small downtown, but like everything's not named. Like I mentioned before, in New York, everything's named. Zillion roads. Like there's just a lot more info than in the other spots, I think. So yeah, I guess my answer is I think it will be contained. I think currently most of the solutions are very widespread. They're like, oh yeah, Gershwin, New York, Hamilton, New York. Like all the clues are just New York. How are we going to solve a puzzle in the biggest city ever if 90% of the clues are just getting you to New York?
Yeah. I mean, you could ultimately tie anything back to just New York. Like if that was your goal, anything is New York.
Global clues are easy in all of the areas. Blyden, Charleston. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how this puzzle works. We don't have evidence that that's how this puzzle works in any of the ones that are solved.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Chris said something earlier which made me think. He said the puzzle is what it is, right? It could be a shitty puzzle, it could be a great puzzle, whatever. It is what it is. What keeps you guys into this puzzle? Because like judging from the other puzzles you guys have worked on and the puzzles I know, this one's way different, and I mean it does kind of suck in comparison to other puzzles. It's not put together well. Is it just the needing to know that keeps you in it?
Yes,
think
for
so.
me, yes.
I need closure. Someone just find it.
Right,
just like
right.
I need. Part of it, I think, is I'm annoyed that no one can figure out the answer.
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of it comes from an annoyed place, but and like it's a certain amount of hubris. I think maybe I can do it. So there we go. Like put those two together, and
Yeah,
here I am.
All right.
that's me
Let's see.
too. I don't want to die before San Francisco's solved. I really want. I don't know why I'm fixated. I mean, I do know why I'm fixated on that one, but I really want to see it solved. New York.
I mean,
as well.
we're all here, and we like. I don't live in San Francisco anymore, but I lived there for a long time. We all live in cities where it is in the city we lived in, so that might have something to do.
Yeah.
If you want to solve your home city.
It's like this sense of pride. This sense of pride. There's hubris. There's curiosity. There's annoyed, like you said. Like, here I want to be a hero too. I think it would be fucking amazing. Pardon my French. I think it would be friggin' amazing. And like, after all this time, all these hundreds of thousands of people tried to do it. This person finally did it. I mean, what a feather in your cap. It would be really cool.
I don't know. I've given completely up on St. Augustine. I don't even. The weird thing is, with St. Augustine, we know so much about it, but it's all been brute forced, and we don't understand really any of it. We don't understand how we were supposed to find this. We don't understand what any of it's supposed to mean. We just know, here's some words on a wall. They're the same. Cask is over here. Like, you see what I'm saying? We know really nothing about it. So I gave up. I am dead. Done.
That's one I'm glad I never got into.
St. Augustine?
Yeah. That one sucks.
It does. It's going to be in Vero Beach. That's what it's going to be in Vero Beach or like Miami. It's going to be in Tampa. Brian Zinn's going to find it in Tampa. That's what's going to happen.
I don't know. I think the verse is pretty clear for Foy, but I'm not.
It seems like Foy to me. I know we've been talking about
trigger a bunch of people on the comments.
I'm not even reading anymore. I
think I don't know if I'm really interested in necessarily finding a cask as like my motivation. I think when we figured out like that month pattern, that kind of stuff is really exhilarating. When you find something that's definitely something, whether you're completely right about it. That's kind of the small highs that I kind of go for, and that's why I think we talk about this puzzle a lot and aren't always just looking at endpoint. We're really just trying to tie the puzzles together, and like because the evidence exists, and I think that's as exciting to me as well, maybe not finding a cask, but trying to find a cask.
Yeah. There's like a dopamine rush when your brain thinks it figured something out. Like when something clicks, we all get like it's the gambler's thing, right? It's that same, like from a psychological perspective.
I think
there's nothing.
To quit a few times, so.
What's that?
We've all threatened to quit a few times. Like we'll even disappear for like a few days, but then we always come back.
Literally days. That's as long as I can go. And I'm like, okay, I'm back. Damn it.
For a week once, it was fun.
Yeah, I remember that. We were like, he's dead. He's dead.
You just see something random, like a newspaper article, and you're like, oh.
Wait a minute.
What? That word is interesting. And then I'm back in the book.
Here's a historic photo of Union Square. Mm-hmm. Hey, guys, I'm back. The dopamine hit when you solve a puzzle, there's kind of nothing like it. Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm addicted to that feeling.
Yeah,
and I don't get it as often as you guys do, probably, but when I do,
I don't know, you guys give us a lot of credit. We're just a bunch of amateurs floundering around.
Well, I've seen you guys do some awesome stuff. That's all I'm saying. Much more than that.
I mean, why the reason we give you guys credit is because you help. Like you don't seem to be in it to like a lot of hunters are like, I just want to cask or I just want you to look at me. Right? One of those two things. And you guys don't seem to care about like anybody looking at you or anybody paying any attention to you. But when people do pay attention to you, if they need help, you're interested in helping them. And I think that's okay. Well, when I need help, you help me. So there.
You're welcome. And let me tell you a little bit about. Oh, wait, you meant these guys. Okay, sorry, just kidding.
But I mean, I think that's something The Secret doesn't have a lot of. Just helpful conversation, or somebody that you can bounce stuff off of that's not going to judge you and that's going to walk down the path with you respectfully.
this thing has created a lot of polarization
Yeah.
that I've seen, and a lot of like taking my friggin' football and I'm going over here and I'm starting my own group, you know, like forget these people, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's fine, because that's how everything is. Anytime more than like 30 people get into something, that's how things work. Just that's
and it's
just
hard.
everything.
It's hard to let go of too. Like I'm super guilty of that, and it's something I've tried to work on, but it's something that's difficult because you have to change the way you think. You have to change the way you interact with people, and it's really difficult to do, even when you're conscious of it.
And here's the thing, and somebody just made a good point. Kelly McCann said, the pages are too brutal. People don't think others want to help. And the problem there is, the problem with social media in general is tone is so impossible to read. And you also can't tell, you haven't interacted with somebody for an hour or something, so you can tell what their personality is like and stuff like that. So they come off as a dick, or they come off as a yes man, or they come off as like conniving or a know-it-all, right? And actually they may be the opposite. So you may think that somebody's not trying to help you out, and they actually are, or they are doing you a service by disagreeing with you, but their tone makes it come off as if they're being a dick, and they're actually just poking holes and trying to help you out. But it's hard to discern.
I think a lot of that problem is like my fault and like John's fault.
True.
It's the fault of the podcast in the beginning, because in the beginning people would come in with new answers and we would just be like, or new ideas, and we would just be like, no, it's not that, it's this. Like, it's obviously not a ball field in Boston, you're a moron. It's the 2 C's because everything there matches. We just you know what I'm saying? And we set that tone in the beginning, and it's been a hard thing to break.
Yes. And remember, back then it was no big deal because this thing was pretty small.
Yeah. It was like 200 people. Who cares?
Yeah, a couple, maybe 50 people, maybe 100 people, you know? And so, like, I don't care if I piss off a dude, because, you know what I mean? Like, nothing's really can happen to me. But if you piss off, you know, 10,000 people, it's bad. You know what I mean? Like, so I think I was more, I was the same way. I was very opinionated in the beginning. I'm like, no chance is this, you know, that and the other thing. And now that it's kind of broadened up, I've grown a lot of like patience.
Now that it's like, that bird is the Boston Pops. Okay, yeah, please tell me every idea you have. Something, you know.
And it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point too. As far as people ripping people apart with new ideas and stuff or whatever. On the same front, I think a lot of newcomers come in with this idea that, oh, these people have been working on it for 40 years. They're doing it wrong, which is also just as toxic in that a lot of times, yes, maybe the prevailing theories are all wrong. It's possible. But I think sometimes they take for granted the amount of information you have to keep track in this puzzle that they're not aware of. Like, and I like when sometimes people are open to this, others just brazenly come in and will say whatever. But like, I know recently someone brought up the capital letters.
I'm listening. I'm just off camera.
But like the capital letters, and I pointed out that you know, Roanoke has clear names in it that are not capital letters, and they're like, oh, I hadn't looked at that one yet. I got to go back to the drawing board. And I thought that was a really cool response. That wasn't just like, you clearly, this clearly isn't a good idea because we've seen that Byron always uses capital letters for proper nouns. You know, like, it's just like, there's a lot of nuance to this puzzle that you have to keep track of. And I think sometimes the newcomers forget that the old comers aren't just saying they know the answers to the puzzles. They have just a lot more of the basic facts of the puzzle in their brains, and that it all goes into it.
So,
a big part there is sometimes people just hold their ideas so close and in such high regard that if someone tries to poke a hole in it, their response is to protect, to get on the defensive
Yeah.
right away out of the gate. And like one thing that I tried to do or tried to learn is to like let that go and not tie my personal self-worth to any idea that I have. So I think that, but I think that's a big thing. So if someone like tells me I'm wrong, cool. Like I probably am, but tell me why. Let's get into it. Play it out with me. And then, so I'll try to do that in the same way. And sometimes sort of Phil was just describing a great outcome of that in the groups where someone says, oh, cool. Let me go back to the drawing board. Like if we all approached it like that, I think that would be better. But sometimes if you try to mention something like, oh, well, you know, in Chicago it worked like this, and then it just like explode on you, and that's also not great. So it's like, well, I thought we were just trying to talk about this. Okay, I'm just gonna stay away, right? So then, I don't know.
There is nothing positive that you can gain from tying your self-worth to a puzzle. Like so many people did that in the Forrest Fenn hunt. Now the Forrest Fenn hunt's over and they're still arguing.
And there are lawsuits and like
yeah, it's nuts.
We don't have closure, though. We don't have the closure.
Yeah, but they're arguing over things like so they don't know the answer, but they're still like, only I know what it is, and Jack hacked my email and found it, and this sticks me, like this stick was in the box, and that's the most important thing that Forrest Fenn could have put in the box, and like they're fighting over this stuff and it's not because necessarily they want to solve it. It doesn't seem like they're fighting over it because they want to know the answer. It seems like they're fighting over it because they want validation. And there's like a
shit ton of money.
Well,
but yeah, I know what you're saying.
I mean, but there's nothing it's just a puzzle. It's just a stupid book that didn't sell. There's more people on the groups now, I think, than copies of books were sold. Mm-hmm. So like, it's just a stupid book. It's nothing to tie your life around. Or not tie your life around, but it shouldn't define you.
We see how that can go.
Yeah, look at me.
George, looking at you. And the other thing is that none of us, I mean, none of us know for sure. None of us knows for sure. I mean, yeah, that point can be made. I mean, I think I've studied quite a bit of this, so I know some things, or I think some things, but I mean, you know, when I try to go help people, I'm like, why am I even bothering? You know, sometimes I feel sort of like, I can try to point you in a direction from a person who's done some puzzles before, or like looked into this particular thing before, but in general, you know, I don't have any of the answers either.
But then we go back to patterns. We go back to what we've discussed for this entire episode, in that like every answer is not created equal. Yeah, we don't know the answers, but we do know things about this particular puzzle.
Yeah. And whether or not your answer, I guess what you're saying is whether or not your answer fits into the knowledge that we already know makes it better or worse.
Yeah, and that's always a hard discussion because, like I said, we don't even know if there's patterns. We don't know this, we don't know that. But like we do, I don't know. We know the very basics of how this puzzle works. It does lead to a spot. It does that. I don't know. I'm just rambling now. But I do think
we all are.
I do think the concept of no one knows, so all the ideas are equal isn't excellent. It's not great.
It's a slippery slope, right? Like anything. Yeah. There are guardrails and boundaries defined on the puzzle based on the ones that the global, you know, we have found. So on the one hand, there is information, and we can inductively say, you know, maybe how these worked are going to be similar across other ones, but at the same time, we do kind of need to remain open to maybe they're all 12 or different, and treading those lines is where it gets gray.
Yeah. Because I mean, when you say all 12 are different, I mean, yeah, they're like, yes, they can be different, but not
unique.
They can be unique, but I would say they can be unique but not different. Like there's too many overarching themes and similarities to say that everything is that they can be completely different. You know, they can have different solutions, but they do sort of fit into a mold, and they sort of have to fit into a mold. Otherwise, the everything we know about the book is incorrect, right?
I don't know.
Some kind
Could
of
one of them be
some kind of
letters
mold.
after comma? You know, like
Well,
I don't think puzzles do that.
I don't think I'm talking. Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out an example. Like the people
I don't. I'm just saying we don't know. I mean, I don't. And does that fit the mold still? Like each one, I don't know. I feel like more and more I'm feeling that they all share elements, but each one's going to have a unique element, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's really throwing people off.
I'm just thinking about the like left field kind of ideas. When people say maybe this one's different, maybe the Houston cask is actually in Texarkana or whatever, when that doesn't necessarily fit with the entirety of the puzzle, if that makes sense. Not, you know, the way the clues are presented different, but the way, like, it doesn't matter.
Is each one having some sort of difference, like a pattern in and of itself? Not a very helpful pattern, right? But it's some kind of pattern. That there's something, I don't know. Maybe is there some, what do you guys think? Is there some master key for this thing that once you unlock it,
to what level? Like I think we found one of the master keys. Yes.
Yeah.
Like what?
I think there's an unfound master key to the litany for the pairing, but still unfound.
Okay.
I think Phil was talking about the months, but that I would say that's more of a thematic. Like it's a key, but it's a key theme that each one has its own individual theme, and that how that plays into the solution for the puzzle
remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Or doesn't at all.
Well, I mean, see, what I liked about the months thing is it didn't, on its own, it didn't break anything wide open, right? It just allowed you to confirm things, right? Things that, in retrospect, things that we already knew, it was able to confirm those things. But if you were working on the puzzle and you had figured out the months thing, once you go along to start figuring out the cities, you could use the months thing to confirm whether or not you were in the right. So, I think a lot of people begin looking for these grand themes. Like, I don't want to make fun of him, and every time I bring him up, I say this. He knows I like him, so I can say stuff about him. Like Anagrams guy, who thinks everything is an anagram or everything is like a chemistry set. Everything is an element. I think like when people look for grand keys, they look for stuff like that, something that's very unique, or not unique, but something very exact that every puzzle is going to do. When you should be looking more for like things that would help you confirm answers.
The problem is that leads to rabbit holes and confirmation bias, and it leads you down a pretty dark path. And
I was going to say, I think that's dangerous. The way you phrased it. I know you don't mean it like that, but when you said it allowed us to like confirm things we already knew, I think that was a big pushback on our presentation of the months and the methodology and the theme, was that I think a lot of people were just taking it as, oh, these guys are aligned with the old timers. They like those theories, so they're making them work even better. But that wasn't our approach. Our approach came from some very clear ones, such as Montreal, Boston, which we ended up changing after that, which is surprising because that was one of the ones that helped at least hit me to the concept that this may be a thing. I think an important feature of this is that what we presented to the people was after a whole lot of bashing our heads against the wall, checking various areas of the city that we didn't believe in, really trying to investigate these themes. And then when they did ultimately resolve very nicely to quite a few areas that were already on the map, which makes sense. It's been 40 years. I would expect brute force to do a decent job over that course of time as far as just finding some clues that fit. that was the very end of our process, which was we tried to keep very unbiased in that we had maybe 12 themes for some of these that were like, this could be the theme, this could be the theme. What do you think of this? That we just kind of whittled away at until we ended up on these ones that worked very strong. And lo and behold, ended in some of the parks that we're already looking in.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to highlight that we've changed multiple of them. We put a video out and that's what we thought at that time. But we also kept whittling away and pushing our boundaries on them and trying to prove ourselves wrong constantly. And that's why some of them changed a bit. Specifically like Boston, San Francisco, at least, if not more. But the thought process is what's important, the approach, more than what we said in the video.
And just the fact that months are important. Like whether Augustus is the month theme, he's clearly tied into the month, which these aren't, Byron has no reason to organize these by month, flower, gem.
Right.
Just to be like, that was clever. Like what's the point of a puzzle with all these beating it to death? Like he could have just done the gems. That's still ordered by month.
Yeah. Yeah. I really wish we could figure out what the hell is up with the month specifically, with the numbers, because that's like one clue that's given to you 3 different times in 3 different ways in each puzzle.
You know what's awesome about latitude and longitude is at least it is something somewhat tangible. It actually gave you a location. You know what I mean? It's okay, friggin' that's awesome. And that's what I want from the months and the gems and the flowers or immigration and I agree with Chris. It's giving me themes. Cute themes don't solve this thing,
But they narrow it down heavily.
Yeah.
Do they?
Absolutely. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like the San Francisco one specifically, with the unity of different things in the image, with the unit and ending up at Union Square, for God's, you know what I'm saying? Like that, or the gold in Montreal, that the marigold and the golden theme in Montreal. Yeah. I mean, it does it. And that's what I meant by it gives you confirmation. If you had known none of this stuff and you were like, I think this verse is in this painting and I think it's in Montreal somewhere in the Golden Square, and you would have worked out that pattern of things in your chart, if I may, that would have helped you confirm that you were in the right spot. It's not.
It would have been the other way. It would have been the other way around. You would have been like Rembrandt, gold, Dutch, gold. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, gold. You figure out Montreal, and you're like Montreal gold. Yeah, obviously it's in the Golden Square Mile.
I could see both ways. But I think that was a great
depending on how you
of
approach the puzzle.
What you were talking about earlier, Chris, where I think John was just beating the gold to death in Montreal, and we weren't making the connection. We weren't really latching on too well until he brought up the golden masters thing. And that one was just kind of an aside, and I got all excited about it. And that's when I started looking into this, and that's when this all fell in place. I started looking up all the things in the image, and they all started having gold in their Wikipedias.
And I mean, even the painting was painted in gold. It's the only painting that we know of with gold leaf. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I think Brett and I were we're thinking about cutting out early tonight, guys. So cool. I figure if you guys want to wrap up, I didn't figure you wanted to sit here for 2 hours and talk about The Secret.
I did not.
I didn't
even want to talk about The
Wouldn't
Secret.
be the first time. Won't be the last time.
Yeah, I was going to say, except Chris. Chris always wants to talk about The Secret. And Phil, you look like we're killing you right now. Sorry.
His brain is exploding.
There's a lot of things that just get said a lot, and I don't know, I just can't stop myself, but it still hurts.
My whole point with this was I wanted to show people what a team could be. if that makes sense. What it was like to have people who disagree with you to bounce ideas off of, but people who were, they would disagree with you, but they would also sort of, what's the word? Not prop you up, but you know, that you should have people that would challenge you to help move your ideas forward, and not just have a group of people who all have the same ideas because yes men are bad. So I guess that was my whole point in this, and to show that no matter how you solve a puzzle, like everybody does it a little differently, and that doesn't necessarily, just because you're solving it different from somebody else doesn't necessarily make you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It just means you're approaching it from a different angle. I don't know if I accomplished any of that on the stream, but that was what I wanted.
No, I think it was good. I think it was good.
We should point out that we do fight, and it does get really intense sometimes on our Discord. So that's okay. That is okay.
Physically?
Yeah.
No, because we're not together. But I think I threatened that if the border was open, I'd probably get my ass kicked, but I'd at least try.
I mean, Phil and Chris are both, or John and Chris are both large.
Right.
Yeah, they'd both kick my
And
ass.
also across the border.
I mean, John's short, but he's large.
But Phil is fast, so he could just get in and get away.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I would just walk in and take the beating, but it would be a pride thing, probably.
I promised everybody that we would give away one of Arthur's leg eaters.
Oh, they're so much bigger than I imagined.
Cool.
Oh yeah, these are cool. I picked up 4 of these. I picked up 2 to give away, but I'm going to give one to somebody else. This one to give away. I bought one for John because John wasn't in the groups, and I figured he would absolutely want one. But I don't have his address, so I got to get that from him. But anyway, we're going to give one away. These are super cool. And I don't know how, Brett, do you want to just pick somebody at the end of stream? Or just like go through and pick a comment randomly?
All right, yeah. Let's build a
all right,
random
here's what I'm
number
gonna do.
generator.
Or do we want to let
Random.
Chris do it? Do we want to let Chris do it so there's no
Here's
bias?
what I'm going to do. There is no bias in this. I'm going to scroll back through all the comments and put my finger down, and then whoever the person is on the comment gets it.
Watch
Cool.
Brett's camera go out because he knocks his screen off his desk. This is going to be great.
It's
He
Brett
realizes
Zingler.
his laptop isn't a touch screen and it doesn't work that way.
It was Brett Zingler that won it. Okay, here we go. Okay, you ready? It is Diane Bryant.
Oh, cool.
Graydon had a good strategy of adding comments at the last minute.
Diane Bryant, come on down.
Diane
You're the
Bryant.
big winner.
Get me an
Win
address.
a leg eater.
Let me go find Diane Bryant. Oh, damn it, man. Can't you tag me? Anyway. All right,
She's
guys.
there. She's there.
Okay. I appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks for coming and talking to us, even though, I mean, it was...
This is fun.
Thanks for
Yeah,
keeping
it was
it
a lot of
short.
fun. You guys have to do more videos now, so go make your own videos.
Go make
We talk
videos.
about it.
Stop talking about it, man. Just start recording it when you talk about it,
Well,
and then put that shit on YouTube.
People can read. I think we're writers. We write a lot more than we video record. So there's a ton of good shit on the blog that Phil and John have done in the last month. So
And that would be
Yeah,
the
Reddit.
secret.
How
of
selfless of you.
secret.com.
I don't know.
I'll,
I think they've been crushing it.
Let me post the link. The secret. It's super easy to remember. The secret of the secret.com. All right. I say it's super easy, and then I didn't even spell it correctly. All right, I'll fix that. I'll post the link. But anyway, guys, I guess we'll end. Thanks everybody for coming on. Have a good night.
Thank you.
See you.